Hello, everyone, and welcome to this third episode in this Grandmaster Chess series. And today, this episode is titled 3300 Chess. As in this game, if we take a look at the game review, which is crazy, looks like White played a 3300 level game and his opponent played at 2950. So this should be an interesting game. It was a 3-minute blitz game with 1 second added after each move. So let's begin here. All right. White was Levon Aronian, and he played against, let's see if I'm pronouncing this correctly, Novendra Priasmoro. Okay, so Aronian begins with e4, and his opponent responds with e5, knight to f3, knight to c6. So standard opening moves. They're attacking and controlling in the center. And now bishop to c4, the Italian game. So the opponent responds with knight to f6 here, which is the two knights defense in the Italian game. So there are different responses that black could have played. He could have played bishop to c5 instead. But this knight to f6 move, the two knights defense, can lead to some really crazy variations in the Italian game. So White continues with this move. So knight to g5 here, attacking along with the bishop, this f7 pawn, threatening a fork here of the rook and the queen. The bishop could also capture this pawn with check, leaving the king stuck in the center here. So right away, this game could get pretty wild, and that's probably why Aronian played this opening in a 3-minute blitz game to immediately cause complications. So the opponent responds with d5. So, this is a good move here, blocking the path of this bishop. And so White responds with capturing this pawn, but his attack has been slowed down now that this pawn is in the way. And so now we have knight to a5, and black counterattacks here, attacking the bishop. So then White, he continues to attack with bishop to b5 check here. And now we have c6 blocking the check on the king. And this allows this pawn to capture here. So capture and then a recapture, attacking this bishop once again that was checking the king here. So the bishop retreats back to e2, and now it's black's turn. And what does he do here? So it looks like h6, just attacking the knight and driving it back. So, the white attack here kind of fizzled out, and now black is counterattacking and pushing white's pieces back towards his side of the board. So, white retreats here with knight to h3. If we go back one move, it looks like the computer prefers knight to f3, but knight to h3 is about the same, although normally you don't want to move a knight to the edge of the board. And I guess White was also not worried about the bishop capturing here and breaking the pawns apart, as normally you don't want to give up the bishop pair, especially in an open position like this. And also, if there was a capture here, that could lead to the rook landing on this half-open g-file and aiming up here at the king, where black would like to castle since his queen side is so open. All right, moving on, we have bishop to c5, a good developing move by black, getting ready to castle. Although the computer preferred bishop to d6, that would put the bishop behind this pawn, but if the pawn moved forward, the bishop would have a good attack on the king side here. So d3 is played, which will allow white's bishop to develop here. And now black castles on the king side. His king is safe, and his rook's moving towards the center. And we have knight to c3. So we notice how these expert chess players, Levon Aronian, one of the top players in the world, top grandmaster, he just develops his pieces, and black does the same. So in the opening, they're just trying to get everything out and into position, and so the game continues with knight to d5, and the computer says this is an inaccuracy. It swings the game in white's favor here, where if he went knight to b7, it would remain slightly in black's favor. So that would be a tough move to find, to bring, retreat your knight backwards and block in your bishop at the same time. So, I guess his thought here was to develop the knight into the center, attack white's knight, threatening to capture and double his pawns, and if white captures, it would pull this c pawn into the d5 square, where he would have both central pawns here covering a lot of squares. So white goes ahead and castles, getting his rook closer towards the center here. And now we have f5. And the computer says that this is an inaccuracy. And so the computer preferred bishop to b6 here, just retreating this bishop back and possibly getting out of a line, getting out of the line of fire of a possible knight attack with knight to a4. But let's see what happens here. The king moves to h1 to get off of the line of this bishop aimed down towards the king side. And now we have knight captures. So after the pawn recaptures, white's pawns are doubled up here, and now he has the isolated pawn, the a pawn that could be a weakness, and f4 is played. So this pawn is backed up by the rook on f8, and so the pawn is pushed forward to be used as a battering ram to start an attack on white's king side. And so white continues with knight to g1, where he could possibly cover this, the further push of this pawn. And so now we have bishop to f5, the best move in the position, developing this bishop off the back rank. And from here it can defend the king and also attack in the center and help push this pawn forward, which can in turn help support this f-pawn moving forward. So white jumps the knight up to f3 to try and slow down the push of this f-pawn, but now this allows the e-pawn to push forward, attacking the knight. So white is forced to make a decision here, and white plays d captures on e4 here, and the computer says that this is a mistake. White is still ahead by plus 0.2, but the computer prefers, instead of that pawn capture, this move, knight to d4 here. And it says with that move, white is ahead 0.8, so almost a full pawn's worth of material by jumping that knight here, where it attacks the bishop, threatening to knock out the bishop pair. And what does he do? He could retreat here. The computer says that the best move is to just capture here and counterattack white's bishop. And then the game, if this would have occurred, possibly capture here, and then the bishop knocks out that knight, and now we have doubled pawns here by white, but the queen jumps in. And so, this is how the game potentially could have gone. And now we have black with the queen in the center. The bishop is attacking the center. White has an isolated pawn here on the d3 square as well as on a2, but so does black on these two pawns up here, and his knight is on the edge of the board, so he needs to figure out how to bring this knight back into the action. And white does have the bishop pair, so the evaluation here is that white's ahead by a half a pawn worth of material. But in the game, if we go back, after this e4 pawn push attacking the knight, instead white captures that pawn. And then after a recapture with the bishop, now we have bishop to d3, threatening to capture the bishop. If the bishop captures, well, that would just help white by allowing white to recapture and undouble his pawns. So what does black do here? He just retreats back to d5, but the computer says that's an inaccuracy, and better would have been to just bring the queen into the center of the board to d5 and support that bishop. So now we have a4 here. So the bishop was attacking that pawn on a2, and so the pawn is pushed forward. Now the rook can possibly move and not worry about that bishop capturing the pawn when it was on a2. So continuing on, we have queen to d6, protecting the bishops, moving close to the center, kind of aiming at the king side as well, and connecting the rooks here. So one of your aims in the opening and into the middle game is to develop all your pieces and get your rooks connected where they can support each other and they have room to move to the best squares, usually where they can attack on open files or half open files, or help support pawns that you've pushed forward. All right, continuing on, the computer says queen to d6 was an inaccuracy. Instead, it preferred queen to f6. But, that it does say that was a half a point's pawn worth of difference if the queen would have gone to f6. But in the game, after the queen moved to d6, the knight jumps up here into the center. But this move, which was good earlier, is now a mistake. So the computer wanted instead, I went too far. The computer preferred knight to d2 instead. So with this move, the threat is possibly to jump up here to e4, attacking the queen and the bishop at the same time. So, trying to get rid of one of the bishops in the bishop pair. But in the game, we had, knight to d4. So now the game continued with f3. So now black makes a mistake. And here the computer says that knight to c4 would have been better. So if we look at that real quick, knight to, knight to c4. So basically, this move would bring this knight back in towards the center because he's not doing much over here on the side. And white's knight is in a good position in the center. And so it would have been a better move just to bring that knight in and help with the attack or whatever black decides to do here. So now, if we look at what happened in the game, let's see. Knight to d4 was played, and then f3. So black wanted to just push forward, continue an attack on the king side here. And so in response, we have knight retreating back and capturing that pawn, which is the best move in the position. And now a mistake is made. Bishop takes f3. So this jumps the evaluation to plus 1.67 here. So, a pretty sizable mistake. And it looks like better would have been, instead of capturing with the bishop, capturing with the rook here and keeping the bishop pair and having that bishop lined up on the king like this. And then the game could have played out in this fashion. So pawn captures would have been the best move, of course. And then now we could have rook to f8. So this move lines up on this pawn, but more importantly, it threatens a fork with the bishop of the king and the queen. So in response, bishop to e2 would have been the best move, and then the queen could start moving in here closer. Possibly from here the bishop could swing up here and maybe threaten a mate on h2, and after this white would have to reposition his rook to jump up here and cover this mate threat, if the bishop moves up to d6 and creates a battery with the queen attacking here on h2. But moving this rook would allow a capture of the pawn. Now it's under attack, but the rook wants to move up here anyway and just help guard things. But now we have the rook sacrifice that should have been done earlier. And so after capture, now we have the rook that is pinned to the king, and the queen cannot capture this, because if the queen captures, well then, I guess we could take a quick look at that. Let's say we have this capture. Well then it's a mate in two because check. And then the only thing possible is to block, and then this would occur. So that of course has to be avoided. So after bishop captures, the queen is under attack. So what should white do? He could possibly check up here. The king would have to retreat, and now he could move back, checking again. But the bishop can block and attack the queen at the same time. So, the game could have played on like this, attacking the bishop. The queen captures now, counterattacking the unprotected rook. So the rook has to move, but now the queen has time to protect this bishop here. And now the bishop could move over here and line up, threatening to capture this pawn. And queen moves down here to protect the bishop. And the game could have gone like this, and it's just really crazy. White has a king out in the open like this, but white is ahead in material. A knight. Well, let's double check that. Actually, it's even because of the two extra pawns that black would have. So this is just a possible way the game could have gone. And now white is ahead. Let's see, by the equivalent of 3 pawns, but the computer evaluation is that it's dead even here. Probably because this king is wide open with a knight and a queen hovering here. And the king, black's king, is pretty safe. Anyway, this is how the game could have gone. But if we go back to what actually did happen, the mistake was made with this bishop capture. After pawn capture, we had queen to e5. An inaccuracy. The computer preferred queen to d5 instead of e5. And the game continued on with the rook moving here to this half-open file, lining up on the king. And then after the king moves off of that attacking line that the rook has, the rook just moves up here to g6, where it's protected by the bishop, and it kind of cramps these pawns, and there are possible threats of maybe attacking with the bishop, capturing this h6 pawn and being backed up by the rook, leading to a check. So now we have a threat of mate here by black. But white swings over, stopping that mate threat, and piles up on the king side here. And here the game ended. So I don't know if the opponent, if black ran out of time, or if he resigned here, but it's plus 3.7 advantage for white. So white should definitely be winning. And the computer gives a possible line of how the game may have continued. So, possibly something like this. Then queen to g2. Maybe making room after this bishop is moved to bring the other rook over. And also, to help protect this pawn. Although, the rook could swing down there and grab it if it wanted to. So bishop move to help protect things here, and then the bishop moves out of here, allowing room, developing, but also allowing this rook to swing over here. And this says that was an inaccuracy, so that's funny. The computer gave that line as a recommendation, but then as we played it out further, it's showing that it would have been best to just capture here. So we'll take a look at that instead. So capture is apparently the best move in the position. And then after, let's see, this capture, well, now what is it showing? It looks like rook to g1 is the best move, tripling up on the g file here. And then after bishop to f4, it looks like, let's see, rook to g4 is what it's showing as the best move. And then looks like queen capture here. And then we have queen capture, bishop captures, king captures. And what do we have here? White is ahead, with 2 extra pawns, although these pawns are doubled up here, and black could try and pick one of these off. But white is ahead, and the computer gives a plus 4.6 evaluation. So I've gone on long enough in this game review. If we look at what the computer says here, once again, white played 3,300 level chess here, and the opponent played 2,950, and the computer says that white really outplayed black in that one. Black had a good opening, but white was on another level. White was a cut above black in the middle game. And if we look at it, it was 93.6 accuracy versus 84.5, and no blunders or misses, but they both had 2 mistakes and 1 inaccuracy by white, but black had 7. So that is what added up to slowly give the advantage over to white before white was able to just press and win. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed this 3rd episode of Grandmaster Chess. 3,300 Chess was the title of this video. And so I would recommend to help improve your chess, go over some high-level games, and just, to get an idea of what the current top players in the world are doing, how they play positions, especially if it's an opening you're interested in. You could go over some of their games, and it will kind of give you ideas on where the pieces belong in the position, what you should be doing. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Feel free to leave comments or suggestions. And also, leave any comments with requests of what you would like to see in future videos, and I'll try and work on that. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.